If you've set foot in an office anytime in the last 30 years, chances are you've seen this book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's more than just a bestseller. It's a cultural landmark that has totally shaped how millions of us think about work and life. But here's the real question. Why does a book from 1989 still have such a grip on our workplaces? Let's dig in.
To really get why this book has had such staying power, we've got to first appreciate its massive, massive scale. I mean, it's easy to be skeptical of self-help books, but the numbers behind this one, well, they're pretty staggering.
We're talking over 40 million copies sold, translated into dozens of languages. This isn't just a book on a shelf. It's become a permanent fixture in corporate training programs for basically everyone, from giant oil companies to local school boards. It's a true global phenomenon. And this quote from Stephen Covey himself, it really gets to the heart of the book's appeal. See, it's not about working harder. It's about working smarter. It makes you stop and ask a pretty critical question. Are you just being busy, or are you actually being effective? So what was the big idea that made this book totally take off? Well, it all comes down to a concept Covey called the inside-out approach.
Covey's whole premise was that real, lasting effectiveness doesn't come from surface-level tricks or the latest management fad. Nope, it comes from deep, internal work on your character and your principles. The idea is pretty simple, actually. You have to get your own house in order before you can effectively lead or even work with other people.
And the whole book is structured around this exact journey. It starts with what he calls the private victory. This is where you work on yourself, moving from being dependent on others to being independent by mastering habits like being proactive. Only after you do that can you move on to the public victory, where you learn to collaborate with people using habits like think win-win. It's a really clear step-by-step path for personal growth. One of the most famous ideas from the book is the power of our own language. Covey argued that the words we use totally reveal our mindset. So reactive people say things like, ugh, I have to do this, basically blaming their circumstances. But proactive people, they flip the script. They say, I get to do this, recognizing that they have the power to choose their response. It's a subtle shift, for sure, but it's a powerful one toward taking real responsibility. But of course, you know how it is. Anything that gets this popular is going to attract some serious pushback. As the book became required reading in what felt like every company on the planet, people started to question its core ideas. And this right here is the central debate that's been following this book for decades. Are the 7 Habits these timeless, profound truths? Or are they just really obvious principles wrapped up in a lot of corporate jargon? This comment from a Reddit user pretty much sums up one of the biggest criticisms, that the book takes a long time to explain some pretty simple ideas. For a lot of people, it feels like reading hundreds of pages just to be told, hey, be nice and listen to people. And the criticisms definitely don't stop there. Some argue it pushes this pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality that completely ignores bigger systemic issues. Others point to some pretty dated science, like his theories on the left and right brain. And a really big one is that when companies force it on their employees, it feels less like help and a lot more like corporate indoctrination. But for every critic, there's an enthusiastic fan. This comment shows you the flip side. For millions of people, this book was genuinely life-changing. It gave them a roadmap to a better career, a better personal life, so its impact is clearly both very personal and very polarizing.
And then you have the academics, who have their own take. Some critics say the book's biggest flaw is that it offers what they call a meta-narrative, basically a single universal formula for success. They argue that this one-size-fits-all approach just doesn't work for everyone, given all our different backgrounds and life situations. So this all brings us to a fascinating paradox. If the ideas are often seen as obvious, or maybe a bit dated, or even philosophically questionable, then why is this book still a multi-million-dollar powerhouse in the corporate world? What's going on here?
Well, the answer isn't just about book sales. It's about a massive business ecosystem. Stephen Covey co-founded a consulting firm, Franklin Covey, and they've built an entire empire on training programs that are based on the book. So companies aren't just buying a book, they're buying a whole system of workshops, coaching, and all sorts of other products. And to see how this whole ecosystem works, we can look at a model from Franklin Covey called the 4Ps. The idea is that real, lasting change starts with the big ideas, your paradigms and principles, but then you have to turn them into concrete, practical processes and practices.
And this is the real key to its long-lasting success in the corporate world. The 7 Habits gives you the what and the why, the big foundational principles. But then Franklin Covey's other programs, like their famous Crucial Conversations course, give you the how, the specific, practical skills you actually need to handle a tough meeting or a difficult conversation.
Let me give you a concrete example. The 7 Habits tells you to seek first to understand, which is a great principle, right? But a follow-up training actually teaches you the skills to do that, like how to ask better questions or how to paraphrase what you're hearing to make sure you get it. So you can think of the book as the operating system, and all the other trainings are like the apps that run on it.
So after 3 decades, 40 million copies, and just endless debate, what should we really take away from the enduring legacy of the 7 Habits?
You know, the legacy of the 7 Habits is, well, it's complicated. Despite its flaws, it absolutely gave us a shared, simple language for talking about things like effectiveness. It brought ideas like character and principles into the business world. And its structure gives people a really intuitive path for growth. But maybe, just maybe, its real value isn't in the habits themselves, but in the simple framework it provides for thinking about them. So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. What's the real genius of this book? Is it the 7 specific habits, which, let's be honest, many people find to be common sense? Or is it the simple but incredibly powerful framework that forces all of us to stop and ask that one crucial question: is my ladder leaning against the right wall?